Okay, so Jagmeet, I'm glad that you were able to have your son join in and participate and share all of his thoughts. That was really wonderful to experience and have that opportunity to talk to him. He sounds like he really knows what how it works. And it's also like he said his favorite part about the story, and my favorite part is how kind he is to others and the way he can be just like Kito to encourage others and to include others and lift them up so that they feel like, oh, there's a promise of success in my future. I can do this. So that was wonderful to hear from him.
Yeah, no, it was nice. Thank you for that opportunity for him.
I'm so glad you're doing a great job raising him. So um, I was going to share the screen and show some of the illustrations that I have that are on my website. So anybody who's interested in reinforcing messages from the story can go to the website. There's activities for kids as well as messages for adults to help them in those difficult moments. So this is just a picture of how to draw an elephant. In one of my other books, Mission Control: A Big Feelings Adventure, the illustrator drew the characters for me in that story, and kids really like doing it. And they're very forgiving of a patient with how they draw. They just don't get upset about anything that happens along the way is quite amazing to me. So I thought, well, I'll do some more of that for this book. So then, in addition to the drawings, here's just a couple of fun pictures of some things that I saw when I was in Africa. And then I made a little maze, and so when we work with kids, we like to retell the story, to the narrative of what happened to help them learn from the experience, a little bit like what we were talking about with your son. And so this is just a maze, and along the way, a child and adult can talk about the events that happened in the story and how he did move, like Sarvan said, from the beginning of the story when he was upset to the end of the story where he felt very affirmed by his friends and ready to play, and he felt like, this is great. I can move on. And then obviously a super simple maze, but the point is more the conversation that can be generated from it. And then this is just something that helps understand like things that are important that parents can try to help support children with, 7 ideas, and then how it applies specifically in the story. So I won't go through all of them, but we're trying to normalize losing. So everyone loses, and there's not a person who's not lost something. And disappointments are temporary. They are like a wave that pass over us, and then we feel better, ideally with support from someone else. And then we can grow from them. So if we can have a growth mindset and think, okay, well, how can I grow from this instead of, oh, nothing's ever going to be different. It's always going to be the same. I'm always going to lose. That sort of negative and absolute thinking versus like, oh, let me try again. Let me lean into this and see what I need to do to make it easier next time or how I can get better at it. So we're just in a nutshell, that's what's happening with Kito in the story. The main idea is, can you just have fun, just like Sarvan said? Emphasizing effort over outcome. What did you do? How did you contribute to the team? Perspective taking, thinking about, does it mean that people don't think that you matter if you don't win? It doesn't mean that. So trying to help take the thought of defining yourself as someone who wins or someone who loses, rather than like, I'm a person who plays games and I have friends and I matter no matter what happens. And teaching skills like I did in the story, coping strategies for how to get through difficult moments, learning from the mistakes or learning from the loss, and providing positive reinforcement like his friends did. Yes, Kito, yes. And then again, as Savan said so well in the part that where we talked, the environment that you're in can really make a difference. And it built his confidence and therefore his self-esteem by seeing that his friends were willing to cooperate with his plan and support him. So on all of this, Jagmeet, what do you see as a parent, as a BCBA? What are the things that you think are important out of here that you work on with kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of these strategies are so helpful. When we're kind of in that moment of feeling that frustration or feeling a sense of overwhelm, it's really hard for all of us, not just children, but parents and adults, and for anyone to kind of step back and say, okay, well, this is my plan, or this is how I should react or behave, or, what I need to be doing, because at that point we're kind of taken over with these really, really heavy emotions. And so just kind of having this type of model, I think, is really helpful. I think that, having the strategies, what in our kind of world we call the behavior plan, what are the step-by-step in terms of what to do, in terms of how to de-escalate, how to respond. And when you have that consistency over time of, when I feel this way in my body, or when I recognize that I'm starting to get escalated, these are my options. And these are options that have helped me de-escalate or feel safe again or feel calm again. I think it's really helpful for all of us to have it, not just for children, but my kids make behavior plans for me, so that way I can stay committed and help model for them of, hey, this is what's happening. Because I think that we have to remember that as parents, they're watching everything that we're doing. And so we need to, we're dealing with a lot of stress on a day-to-day basis as adults. And so how do we also have a plan for ourselves? And I think that the way that you're breaking this down into small steps is really helpful.
Yeah, it's just things to keep in mind, maybe keep on the refrigerator. So to
Yeah.
keep in mind too. Yeah, it certainly isn't the whole answer right here, but it's a bite, a step forward. If
Mhm.
somebody can say, oh, that's something I can keep in mind, it is going to make it easier because it's front of mind, top of mind,
Yeah.
and maybe, like I said, on the fridge to help you remember. Um, this is, again, just a little activity for parents and kids to do together that helps reinforce as you're coloring your thinking and talking about, oh, what did Kito learn? And what's a situation, maybe if this happens to me a lot in my individual sessions of a kid tells me about something that happened at school. And if we work through it in a similar way that we've been talking about, and I want to make some fun out of it because that's how kids learn the best. And so I might pull out a coloring page, and then as they're coloring, we might talk about it because now it's not so much under the microscope
Yeah.
feeling for them. They're doing something, they don't have to have eye-to-eye contact, and they don't have to look in my direction. They can just be coloring, and that calming movement, sensory input, motor output can be soothing for kids and make it easier for them to talk. And then, so in the story, um, the idea is that they are feeling valued and by others. And Kito really does belong to the group, and he feels like he is a member of the group at the end. They make sure that he feels that way. And so this is just an opportunity. It's kind of like the question I asked your son, like, well, how do kids do this? How do they recover from it? So it's just an activity to talk about. It doesn't have to be something's happening in the moment, of course, because that's not always the best time to talk about something. But when a child is ready for learning and their brain is kind of cooled off, and they are, maybe lots of times parents tell me they talk to their kids about this or their kids bring it up at bedtime. That's a time that you could pull it out and say, oh, that happened to Kito, remember in the story? And then draw the parallels between the child's story and the story of Kito. And so having this as a model really helps. It's intended to be a model for kids on how to get through difficult moments, but also for parents on how to do that themselves, but also be able to guide their children. And then one of the other things that I think that we talked about, and actually with your son, we talked about it too, that if something's not going well, you can think about, as Kito did, well, what could I do that's different to make working together as a team improved, or feel like more a part of the group because you've taken responsibility to do something different as that makes it fun for everyone. And so in the story, Keto says, well, I did notice something that I got better. I did notice something that I liked, which was that I could almost run as fast as one of my friends. But this is an opportunity to talk about, well, something like that ever happened to you? Or in a situation that a child brings to your attention as an adult, you can say, oh, some of these questions might be relevant, or some questions similar to this. With your kids that you work with, or your children yourselves, what do you think? Is this helpful to them? Do you think to, like, it's leading questions, or it's questions that are hard to come up with in the moment, that you can just have at your fingertips to think, oh, I could ask and sort of reframe the story by asking questions like this when a child's brain is ready for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually really enjoyed these activities because I think that there's an element of reading a story and kind of getting immersed in the story and then saying, okay, this is what I took away from it, versus having these specific prompts, and being able to engage and interact with that dialogue at the end of the story. I actually did this with my son, when I had seen this activity page. And one of the things that he came up with, was not a game, was actually really interesting, was tying his shoe, and remembering that when he was learning how to tie his shoe, how frustrated he used to get. And after many, many days of practicing, and now he just ties his shoe and it's no problem. It was almost kind of a reminder to him of like, wow, I didn't have to be that frustrated, but it was in the moment, it was very frustrating. And, that was also validating of like, this is really frustrating. Why can't I get my shoe tied? This is how you do it. But it was his commitment to, no, I want to learn this skill, and, I'm just going to keep doing it. Even if I'm frustrated, I'm going to push through. And for, the children that I work with and the adults that I work with, I think that it's really important that, we have those opportunities to practice. And so whether it is we're learning a new skill at work, whether it's a new activity at school, or even how to make friends of, hey, I'm approaching somebody and I said a joke, they didn't like it, and I'm going to have to try again another day, right? And so, I work with all ages and kind of see those kind of different social opportunities and different acquisition of skill of how, somebody is kind of navigating through, hey, I tried this, it didn't work, I failed, I lost, but then, how do I kind of show up again, and try it again? And I think that practice is a big part of that. So I really enjoyed this particular activity, but all of your prompts at the end of the story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's what they're intended to do, is growing. And for
Yeah.
parents to take a moment to reflect on it too. Like, how can I help my child move forward? What lessons can I as a parent share with my child?
Yeah.
And then this one is something that a lot of times, to relieve a child's anxiety, this is a strategy that can be used. And so the worst case scenario is that, and here's the playing it out, Keto forgets to sing his cheer and he loses and is disappointed and never wants to play again, which is how he felt at the beginning of the story. And so at the end of the story, he does have that moment of, oh yeah, I know how I usually respond, but I've got some new tools now. I'm not going to go there. And he's got in mind now, from the help from the elephants, that he could actually have this best case scenario, which would be that, just like Sarvan said in our earlier interview, that saying good game to a friend,
Yeah.
just it's like, whether you win a lot or not, it's still very nice to say great game.
Yeah.
But what's most likely is, like, who knows who's going to win? So you just have to be prepared to go either whichever way it goes. So there's the skills in that are partly what we're talking about. we're really talking about managing the worst case scenario, moving to the most likely case scenario with some possibility that the best will actually occur. So these three scenario things can just be used over and over again in so many different ways. And I think kids get it. And I think they understand that it doesn't have to be black or white, the best or the worst. I think they have in their heads, this is what I want to see happen, the best case scenario. But in reality, sometimes it is the other one and they're unprepared for that. So the one in the middle is helping them be prepared to know what to do if they are leaning toward the best case scenario and what to do if they're leaning in the opposite direction, because most of life is somewhere in the middle between the best and the worst. And so that zone, as you know from the kids you work with, is sort of it's a gray zone. It's not a very well trodden trail for many of the kids we work with. And so it is hard to understand that there's a middle ground, that it can be, you don't have to play the game. You could be the referee, like Saran said.
Yeah.
There's lots of options and it could still be fun. Do you,
Yeah.
yeah, tell me more about your experience with this.
Yeah, I mean, I have a client that comes to mind. We're helping him transition back into the school right now. And so, really thinking about the worst case scenario of I just don't want to be in that school setting and that's overwhelming. And best case scenario in terms of the way that we've kind of created the transition plan is that we're going to start with, 1 hour a day, and there's going to be a lot of highly preferred activities in that environment. And we're going to just fade in or just kind of slowly introduce, schoolwork or test taking or different expectations. And we've been working with a student now since the start of the year, and it's really tremendous in terms of how much progress he's made. And how do you kind of create that buy-in? Not we're just presenting it to him and saying, hey, this is how it's going to be, but really even having, in this case, this character himself saying, hey, this is what is the best case scenario for me. And so I think that self-determination piece, that self-advocacy piece is so important, where, we as caregivers and service providers are always like, this is what you're going to get at the end of it, or this is what we're working for. But versus having the person-centered kind of plan in mind of, this is what I think is going to be the best case scenario for me, and this is a worst case scenario for me. And allowing that voice to kind of come in through that, behavior plan building, through the assessments, through the intervention. Those are really important as well.
Yeah, asking that question, what do you think would be the best case? I love that perspective, because what we think isn't necessarily, it's our
Yeah.
adult brain. It's not the same as a child's brain,
Yeah.
or like our goals are not necessarily a match to what they're thinking. We think in a bigger picture or longer term picture. They're thinking, how am I going to get through the next hour?
Yeah.
Thinking about the time
Yeah.
period also, as well as what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. So that's all the extra activities that I prepared. Did you have anything more you wanted to share about the book or the activities, or how you think you'll use the book or when it's out?
Yeah, no, I thought this was really lovely. I think that, a lot of the work that we do, when we're introducing these concepts to the kids that we're working with, having these engaging illustrations, having the interactive components, that's a big part of that learning. Reading a book is one thing, and, having those social stories is one thing, but really kind of acting on it. And I think that your approach has been really nice to see, is that how do you tie back the lessons from the story and make the illustrations very dynamic, maybe make the scenarios very dynamic, and then allow either the caregiver, the parent, service provider to kind of refer back through some of those at the end. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, good, good. Well, that's the goal, is for it to be for the people, the service provider, like you said, therapists, parents, whatever, whoever it is, the teacher, to know there's a lot that you can do with a book besides just read it and put it back on the shelf.
Yeah.
A lot of growth that can happen when families understand, which is why I'm doing the videos and the interviews and writing the book in the first place, because I see X number of children in a week, but I would like to have an impact on more than that. So I'm glad that you feel that it can be of value in that way. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Jagmeet, for being willing to do this with us and share all of your experiences and wisdom as well with people. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Good, good. Thank you.